The spotlight wasn't meant for her. Diana Santos stood at the edge of the octagon, head bowed, eyes closed, her breathing slow and even. She didn't need to look up to know who was in the center of the gym. Victoria Sterling, the undefeated golden girl of the MMA world. The room buzzed with energy. Cameras rolled, influencers live-streamed, journalists scribbled. Everyone was here for the champion. No one paid attention to the quiet woman adjusting the tape on her hands. But they would. They always did, right after it was too late. 6 months ago, Diana had been just another name on a long list of people Victoria had mocked, dismissed, and flattened. She was the wrong type of fighter, wrong background, wrong gym, wrong everything. Scoffing, dismissive. You girls from Detroit, Victoria had said in one of her many live interviews, should stick to street fights. Arrogantly. This sport is for real athletes. That sentence had replayed in Diana's mind every day since, not with rage, with purpose. Victoria paced like a lioness who had already claimed her victory. She smiled for the cameras, flexed, winked at a few fans. Everything about her was curated for attention. And she had it all. Fame, money, sponsors, a polished team behind her. She didn't even know the trap she was walking into. Diana's plan had been patient, surgical. Not just a fight, not just revenge, a reckoning. Marcus, the quiet strategist with a background in sports journalism, walked toward her with a GoPro in hand. He handed it to her without words. She nodded once, fixing it under the corner post. The entire octagon was now a stage, and every angle was covered. Annoyed, suspicious. Why the camera? Victoria had asked earlier, already suspicious but too arrogant to resist the spotlight. Casual. For a documentary, Marcus had replied casually. Thoughtful, short pause. About racism in women's sports. Victoria had scoffed, scoffs, skeptical. I hope you're not planning to paint me as the villain, calmly pointed. Would that be a problem? Diana had asked, just loud enough. Victoria had laughed. Cuckles, confident. Not unless you plan to twist the truth. Calm. No need. Marcus had smiled, smirking, knowing. The truth is usually loud enough on its own. Now, as the bell rang and the match began, Diana took her first step forward. She wasn't here to prove she was better than Victoria. She was here to prove she always had been. And this time, the whole world would see. The fighter they never saw coming. 6 months before the fight, Detroit was cold. The kind of cold that made breath visible and pain familiar. Diana Santos jogged through the cracked sidewalks of her neighborhood before sunrise, hoodie up, hands tight, eyes focused. She didn't train for fame, she trained because she had nothing else. The gym she called home had no heat, cracked mirrors, and only one working shower. But it had heart. Old posters of forgotten champions peeled from the walls. The smell of sweat and vinyl never left. And still, it was the only place Diana felt alive. She lived in a one-bedroom apartment above a closed-down bar. Rent was cheap because the ceiling leaked. Her fridge had more protein powder than food. Every dollar went into training. Every bruise, every cracked knuckle was an investment in a future no one believed in. No one except her. Diana had always known she was different. From the way she saw angles in fights no one else noticed, to how she could read her opponent's breath, timing, weight shift. Instincts forged not in gyms, but on the streets of a city that taught her to fight before it taught her to walk. The world didn't want to see a fighter like her rise. A black woman with no sponsors, no famous coach, no management team. The media had a template, blonde, clean-cut, polished. Diana didn't fit the story they wanted, but she was about to write her own. It started the day Victoria Sterling gave an interview on a podcast called The Cage Code. Diana didn't listen to it live. She was busy shadowboxing in a freezing basement, but the clip went viral. Victoria laughed as she spoke, sitting beside her coach, Eddie.
There's this idea now that anyone with gloves and a sob story deserves a shot. Like these inner-city girls who train in garages suddenly think they can challenge world-class athletes. It's delusional.
Eddie chuckled beside her. They want respect before they earn it. Diana paused the video, then replayed it. 3 times. That night she didn't sleep. She built a folder on her computer. Sterling Study. Every fight Victoria had done. Every post, every interview. Every rumor, every opponent, frame by frame, word by word, not just to beat her, but to understand her, to dismantle her from the inside out. She contacted Marcus Thompson, a documentary producer known for his investigative work on sports corruption. He didn't reply at first, but 3 days later, after Diana sent a 3-minute voice note explaining what she intended to expose, he called her back. "You're not just fighting her," Marcus said. "You're trying to change the story." Firmly. "Exactly," Diana said. They met in a cafe near the train tracks. Marcus listened as Diana laid out her plan, not just a sparring match, but a setup that would reveal Victoria's prejudice, her hypocrisy, and her ignorance in front of cameras. The world wouldn't hear Diana say anything. They'd hear Victoria condemn herself. "Serious. This only works," Marcus warned, "if you can beat her. Clearly. Confident." "I won't just beat her," Diana said, determined. "I'll outthink her." Marcus leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "You need 6 months, media coverage, legal protection, distribution. You need a trap so perfect that even her lawyers can't save her." Confident. "I've already started," Diana said, assertive. "I've read her entire contract structure. I know how she does media. All I need is to get in the same room. You'll need money. I've got savings, I'll bet everything." Marcus studied her face. Her eyes didn't flinch. "Then let's burn the old playbook." The training changed overnight. Diana switched gyms, quietly. She took up conditioning with an ex-Marine in Toledo who had trained combat survivalists. She learned unconventional striking from a Muay Thai legend who owed Marcus a favor. She practiced against taller, faster, dirtier fighters. She trained blindfolded, underwater, on slippery mats, with one arm tied, learning not just how to fight, but how to dominate. Marcus filed a trademark for the documentary, Breaking the Cage. He hired a contract attorney to create a sparring agreement that included filming rights, release for educational purposes, and full digital distribution. He sent it to Victoria's team under the guise of an empowering series for female fighters. To Diana's surprise, Victoria's team responded with excitement. "We'd love to be part of that narrative," her manager Rick Moranis had said. "Victoria's brand is about empowerment. This could be good PR." "She'll want top billing," Marcus said. "Let her have it," Diana replied. Every move was choreographed, every word planned. Diana gave a quiet interview to a small online magazine, planting seeds. "There are some fighters who are protected by image, but we're seeing a shift. People want authenticity." She tagged Victoria's name once, casually. It was enough. Victoria responded with a sarcastic Instagram story. "Some people just want clout. Let's see what happens when they step into a real cage." That was the beginning of the media war. Subtle at first, then personal. More comments from Victoria surfaced. Old podcasts, tweets, posts that mocked black fighters as diversity tokens. Diana never responded. She didn't have to. Marcus gathered every clip, archived every insult. He built the documentary in real time, waiting for the moment when Diana would confront her in person. It came sooner than expected. Victoria's team offered a sparring match in New York at a private gym owned by one of her sponsors. "Light training for media," they said, "documented for fans." Marcus sent over the contract. Victoria signed it. They wired $15,000 to Diana's account for participation. "She just paid for her own downfall," Marcus whispered. The day of the match arrived. The gym was filled with journalists, influencers, even a few sponsors. Victoria played to the cameras. Diana stayed silent. Before they began, Marcus walked up to Victoria with a GoPro. "We'd like to get all angles." "Of course," Victoria said, waving to the camera. "I want the fans to see everything." "They will," Marcus said. As Diana warmed up, one of the journalists approached her, a woman from La Prensa Latina. "Professional Diana, what do you expect from today's sparring?" Diana smiled, controlled and calm. "Calm, I expect a very honest conversation, without words." It was then that Victoria noticed the cameras weren't just for show. They were positioned, mounted, wired for sound. Multiple crews, professional mics. Surprised, "What is this?" she asked her coach. Marcus stepped forward with a contract. Matter of fact, educational purposes. Paragraph 2, page 3. Victoria's face changed. Angry, "This is about racism? You tricked me." Diana looked up, finally meeting her eyes. Firm, "No one tricked you, Victoria. You agreed, you signed, you showed up." Accusatory, "You brought all these people to humiliate me?" Calm, "No," Diana said, cutting. "You did that all by yourself." Victoria's anger exploded. Angry, "This is an ambush." Quietly, "It's a mirror," Diana said quietly. Marcus stood in the center of the octagon, authoritative. 3 rounds, 5 minutes each. Standard UFC rules. No strikes to the back of the head or eyes. Any questions? Victoria looked around. Too many cameras, too many eyes, too late. She raised her gloves anyway, defiant. "I'll finish this fast." Diana didn't respond. She just stepped into the circle, and the trap snapped shut. When the cage closes, the truth comes out. Round 1, illusion. Victoria Sterling entered the octagon with the confidence of someone used to applause. Her team had prepped her for years to believe she was untouchable. She smirked toward the cameras, tapped her gloves together, and bounced on her toes, muscles sharp, body glistening under the studio lights. Her name meant pay-per-view records, Vogue interviews, and commercial deals. She wasn't just a fighter, she was a brand. And Diana, she was silence. She didn't smile, she didn't bounce. She stood motionless, gloves hanging loose, chin slightly down, as if already bored. Her hoodie dropped to the floor with no fanfare. She wore no sponsors, no logos, just black shorts, black tank, black wraps. The referee stepped in, standard tone. "Ready?" he asked. Victoria nodded, jaw clenched. Diana simply raised her gloves. The bell rang. Victoria struck first, fast jab to test range, sharp, controlled. Diana didn't flinch. She slipped the punch with a quarter-inch tilt of her head, her eyes never blinking. Victoria circled, bounced, feinted a hook, but again Diana moved like smoke. No block, just disappearance. Victoria scowled and came forward harder, throwing a quick 1, 2, followed by a kick to the calf. This time Diana moved, not backward but in. Inside the punch, inside the range. She was chest to chest before Victoria even realized it, delivering a shoulder bump that sent the UFC star stumbling back a step. It wasn't violent, it was a message. Victoria reset, her ego bruised before her face. The journalist murmured. The cameras caught. She feinted again. Diana didn't bite. She threw a looping overhand. Diana ducked, pivoted, and tapped the back of Victoria's thigh with a casual palm as she passed by. It was a street move, a sign of disrespect. Victoria snarled. She launched forward now, no technique, just power. And Diana struck. First clean hit, a left jab that split Victoria's lip. Then a body hook so tight, so brutal, Victoria let out an audible gasp and staggered backward. She didn't expect pain, she expected performance. Diana gave her neither. The bell rang. Round 1, over. Victoria looked shaken, not injured, just confused. As she sat on the stool, her coach whispered frantically, "She's unorthodox. Stay technical. She's baiting you. Don't lose your head." But Victoria wasn't listening. She was looking at Diana. And for the first time in her career, she was trying to figure out what she was looking at. Round 2, exposure. Marcus had set the cameras to live stream to a private server. The moment round 2 began, a select list of media outlets received the footage. Silent headlines began brewing. The fight Victoria didn't want you to see. Sterling shaken by unknown underground fighter. Real versus branded. A sparring match goes public. Inside the cage, Diana adjusted her gloves. Not for protection, just for rhythm. The bell rang. Victoria came out faster, angrier. Left cross, Diana caught it with her elbow. Right kick. Diana checked it and countered with a hook to the ribs. Victoria winced. Her footwork got sloppy. She tried to clinch. Big mistake. Diana wrapped her up, twisted, and threw her to the ground with a modified judo sweep. It wasn't flashy, it was humiliating. Victoria scrambled back up, red-faced, breathing heavier than she should have been. Diana didn't follow. She waited, let her rise. Victoria charged, but now her shots were wild, desperate. Diana slipped, ducked, parried, and then landed a lightning-fast uppercut that snapped Victoria's head back and buckled her knees. She didn't fall, but the gym gasped. The ref stepped forward slightly, unsure if he should stop it. Diana backed away. Let her recover. Let the world see it. Let Victoria drown in the silence between punches. Her corner was screaming now, but she didn't hear them. She only heard her own breath. Loud, shaky, too loud. She hadn't bled in years, but now blood trickled from her nose and her bottom lip. Her ribs throbbed, and worse, she couldn't read Diana. Couldn't time her, couldn't understand the rhythm. This wasn't a fight, it was a lesson, and Victoria had never been taught how to lose. The round ended with Diana untouched. Victoria hunched over, hands on her knees, cameras flashed, Marcus into his mic. This is where the real documentary begins. Round 3, truth. The third round was never supposed to happen. Victoria's coach wanted to throw in the towel. This isn't worth it, he said. Let it go, she's making you look stupid. But Victoria shook her head. She thinks she's better than me. She is, the coach said softly, at least today. Victoria stood anyway. Diana didn't sit between rounds. She stood the whole time, breathing through her nose, calm, unbothered. The final bell rang, Victoria exploded. Hooks, kicks, elbows. She threw everything. Not to win, but to prove something. Pride, legacy, identity. But the more she attacked, the more exposed she became. And Diana? She became art. Flowing, countering, striking with speed and precision. The final blow came with 2 minutes left. Victoria swung wide. Diana slipped under, stepped in, and delivered a clean, spinning elbow to the temple. Victoria dropped, not unconscious, but broken. She landed on all fours, hands shaking, head down. She looked up, saw the cameras, and froze. In that moment, she saw it all, the blood on her lip, the slow nod of the journalists, the silence of her team. Diana, still standing, still untouched. She didn't get up, she didn't quit, but she didn't throw another punch. The ref ended the match, not for injury, but for mercy. Aftermath, silence, screams. Victoria sat against the cage wall, wiping blood from her mouth. Diana walked over, crouched, and whispered, "You were never the best. You were just the loudest." Then she stood and walked away. The cameras followed. The gym was silent. Even Victoria's own team didn't follow her out. Outside, Diana found Marcus. He handed her a towel, thoughtful. "That was," he trailed off, at a loss for words. Diana nodded. "Enough?" Marcus nodded slowly. "More than." He checked his phone. Notifications exploding. Hashtags trending. Sterling exposed, hashtag Diana the truth, hashtag breaking the cage. Media outlets were already dissecting every frame. Clips of Victoria's pre-fight racism were surfacing again, side by side with footage of Diana outclassing her. It wasn't just a fight, it was evidence. Victoria's sponsors began pulling out before sundown. Her Instagram lost 200,000 followers in 12 hours. By morning, UFC executives released a quiet statement. "We support all athletes. We condemn discrimination in all forms. Victoria Sterling is no longer scheduled for upcoming events." But Diana didn't post anything. She stayed silent. Her statement had already been made, in footwork, jabs, and blood. It was never just about her 2 days later. The video had gone viral, crossing 50 million views. Diana hadn't posted a single word. She didn't need to. Across TikTok, young black girls stitched the footage. Instagram Reels showed side-by-side comparisons of Victoria's arrogance and Diana's composure. On X, formerly Twitter, journalists dissected every frame like a historic moment. But for Diana, it wasn't celebration. It was strategy. She sat alone in a Detroit warehouse, the same place where her fight journey had begun. Marcus paced behind her, phone in hand, scrolling through offers, interviews, and sponsorships. Excited. "You could headline a pay-per-view right now," he said. "Everybody wants you." Diana kept her eyes on the floor. "I didn't do this to fight for them," she whispered. "Fulfillious," Marcus turned. "Then what was this?" She looked up, calm but firm, calm. "This wasn't about Victoria. She was just a symptom." Marcus stared, realizing. "You knew she'd come for you," confident. "I baited her," Diana said. "I leaked the gym video. I pushed just enough to make sure she saw me as a threat." Curious. "And the sparring match?" Firm. "Wasn't sparring. It was a mirror." Flashback, 2 months earlier. Diana sat in a rundown gym on Detroit's east side. Old posters of Muhammad Ali and Clarissa Shields hung on walls peeling with sweat and time. Across from her sat a woman in a tailored black suit, tall, pale, hawk-eyed. Name, Meredith Kane. PR executive for the biggest fight promotion company in America. Persuasive. "You're wasting your talent here," Meredith had said, flipping through photos of Diana's underground bouts. "You could be a champion. You could be a star." Diana watched her. Direct. "I don't want to be a star. I want to know who you protect." Surprised, Meredith blinked. "Excuse me?" Determined. "You heard me. Girls like Victoria don't rise alone. Somebody gives them a platform, cleans their mess, spins their racism into confidence. I want to know who." Silence. Nervously laughing, Meredith laughed nervously. "You think this is a conspiracy?" Diana leaned forward, declarative. "I think Victoria Sterling assaulted a black girl in a Florida locker room in 2021. I think your company buried it. I think there's footage." Meredith's smile faded. Diana slid a USB stick across the table, assertive. "On here is my footage. Underground fights. Real. Raw. Better than anything on your fake networks. I'll give it to you, but I want one shot. One gym. One sparring match with her." Meredith stared. Determined. "I'll make it go viral. But when it does, you won't stop it. You won't edit it, and you won't save her." Back to present. Marcus stopped pacing, amazed. "You were never trying to fight her in secret," he realized. "You wanted the world to watch." Calm, Diana nodded. "The cage wasn't for fighting, it was for revealing." She walked to an old wooden locker in the corner and opened it. Inside, a worn red folder with printed screenshots, sealed affidavits, and a hard drive. "Project Redemption," she said, holding it out to Marcus. "What's this?" "Everything they've buried, from Victoria's real record, fights they erased, to gym complaints, racial abuse claims, and NDAs they forced women to sign." Marcus flipped through the pages, stunned. "Where did you get this?" Diana met his eyes. "I've been building it for years. I just needed a way to expose it, with proof people couldn't deny. And now they're listening, so we strike. The real enemy." Diana's plan wasn't revenge, it was revolution. She reached out to the fighters who had been silenced. Black women banned from gyms, Latina fighters who were replaced for being too aggressive, trans women ridiculed by media machines. She called them one by one. Some didn't answer, but most did. Within a week, Diana's story had become something else, a movement. They named it Break the Cage, a community, a collective, a war cry. They weren't just athletes. They were witnesses, survivors of a system that chewed them up unless they looked a certain way, talked a certain way, prayed to a certain God. And now, Diana had lit the match. She went live for the first time on her social media. "I didn't fight Victoria because I wanted fame. I fought her because she represents everything wrong with this industry. I'm not alone. And I'm not finished." The video hit 30 million in 4 hours. She ended with one line that would become a tattoo, a protest chant, a TikTok anthem. "You can't brand the truth, you can only fear it." They forgot where I came from. Detroit, 2011. It was snowing the night Diana Santos lost her father. Not the soft, poetic snow you see in movies. This was Detroit snow, heavy, angry, falling like shards of glass under a blood-red streetlight. 12-year-old Diana sat on the cracked steps of Building 14, shivering under her brother's oversized hoodie. Sirens screamed in the distance. Across the parking lot, police tape flapped violently in the wind. Inside the apartment, her mother's body. Outside, by the curb, her father, handcuffed and crying. That night, Child Protective Services didn't ask questions. They didn't ask what her mother had screamed before she grabbed the knife. They didn't care why her father didn't fight back. They took Diana and her baby brother Dev and split them into different foster homes, like broken dishes wrapped in silence. And that's when Diana stopped speaking. For 3 years. Foster home number 2. Mrs. Boudreau had a porcelain Jesus on every wall. She told Diana, piously, God makes no mistakes, then beat her with a belt when she refused to eat cold ham. Diana learned fast. Quiet girls don't get hit as hard. She became invisible, a shadow in her own story. But every night when the house was still and the sound of her foster siblings' nightmares filled the hall, Diana slipped out to the backyard. There, under a rotting swing set, She practiced what she remembered from the old Bruce Lee VHS tapes her dad loved. She punched the air until her knuckles bled, not to hurt, to remember. Age, 16, group home. The counselor, Miss Trina, was different. She noticed things, like how Diana flinched when anyone raised a hand, or how she tied her shoelaces 3 times before speaking. Thoughtfully, "You need an outlet," Miss Trina said. That's how Diana ended up at East Side Boxing Gym. A concrete box with water-stained ceilings, 1 heavy bag, and a coach who smelled like whiskey and Vicks Vapor Rub. The first day, Diana said nothing. The second day, she broke a boy's nose in 2 punches. Coach didn't ask questions. He handed her tape and gloves and said gruffly, "You come here every day now. You don't talk. I don't care. You just hit." And she did. She fought everyone. By 18, Diana had over 30 unlicensed fights. She fought in abandoned warehouses, basement rings, and taco stands with makeshift cages. No weight class, no gloves sometimes. They called her Gutter Queen, not because she was dirty, but because she always got back up. Broken ribs? She fought. A dislocated shoulder? She popped it back and kept going. But one night changed everything. Atlanta, 2019, the fight that broke her. She had traveled alone, sleeping on a bus with stolen protein bars and 1 worn duffel. The flyer said $5,000 for the winner. No rules. Her opponent? A rising amateur from a well-funded gym. Blonde, tall, clean, trained. With a nickname, White Lighting. The crowd was mostly men. They laughed when Diana stepped in, booed when she landed the first punch, cheered when White Lighting elbowed her jaw and knocked her down. But Diana got up, again and again and again, until the girl panicked and screams, "You dirty ghetto bitch!" The room froze. Diana stood up, blood dripping from her mouth. "You think I came here to win?" she whispered. Then she beat the girl unconscious in front of everyone. Afterward, the promoters refused to pay. The fight was unsanctioned. Her style was unsportsmanlike. They erased the video. But they didn't erase her memory. That night, Diana made a decision, determined, if they won't give me a door, I'll break the whole fucking building. 2021, the digital plan. By now, Diana had hundreds of underground fights, but no official record. She was an urban myth in combat circles. The internet noticed. Comments flooded in. "This girl moves like a ghost. Why isn't she in the UFC? Who is she?" But Diana never revealed herself, not yet. Not until she could choose the moment that would matter most. That's when she saw Victoria Sterling on a podcast laughing about hood girls thinking they can fight. That's when she found the gym. That's when she began to plan. Back to present, Diana stood in front of her mirror, now 26, with battle scars and a name that echoed through every corner of sports media. She pulled on a hoodie, the same shade of her brother's from years ago. She walked past the framed article from Time, "The Fighter Who Broke the System," and beside it, a photo of her and Dev, now reunited, now safe. She whispered under her breath, "They forgot where I came from, but I never did." You can't silence what's already echoing 3 weeks after the fight. The numbers didn't lie. Over 22 million views on the sparring match footage. Hashtag Diana Santos was trending in 42 countries. Victoria Sterling's career was in freefall. But Diana wasn't celebrating. She was preparing, because she knew what was coming next. Not applause, retaliation. The studio was crisp, cold, polished to sterility. Diana sat under the glare of white lights as a seasoned anchor, Michelle Langdon, adjusted her mic. Michelle smiled stiffly. "Off the record," she said, voice low, "the league isn't happy with you. The league should be unhappy with itself." The camera light blinked red. "We're live in 3, 2. Michelle's voice turned sugar sweet. Joining us today is the woman whose viral sparring match has sparked an international discussion on racism in sports, Diana Santos. Diana, thank you for being here. My pleasure. Let's get to it. Some say what happened was entrapment, that Victoria Sterling didn't know what she was walking into. Diana didn't blink. She knew she was walking into a sparring match. What she didn't expect was that the person she underestimated would fight back. And what do you say to critics calling it a career ambush? I say justice has bad PR. When a system is exposed, it screams sabotage. But this wasn't sabotage, it was sunlight. The segment aired in prime time. That night, Diana received 47,000 hate messages and 3 major sponsorship offers. 2 days later, the lawsuit. It came in a gold envelope. Victoria Sterling was suing Diana, Marcus, and the documentary team for defamation, career sabotage, and emotional distress, claiming damages of $12 million. Marcus bursts out laughing when he read it. Diana didn't. She just whispered, "It begins." Boardroom. MMA League headquarters, 6 men in expensive suits sat around a long mahogany table. No women, no people of color. "We have to control the narrative," thoughtful one said. "She's dangerous," concerned another added. "If fighters think they can weaponize identity..." They didn't finish the sentence, because they all knew the truth. Diana didn't just win a fight, she opened a floodgate. Athletes from every corner of the MMA world were now sharing their own stories about the slurs they endured, the pay gaps, the subtle exclusion from sponsorships and media. What Diana started could unravel everything. "She can't win the lawsuit," firmly, the chairman said, "and she can't be allowed back in a sanctioned fight." Detroit, Marcus's apartment. "It's bigger than us now." "Hi," Marcus said, scrolling through messages from lawyers and activists. Diana stood at the window, watching snow fall across the city. The same kind of snow from the night she lost everything. She turned. "Let them come," determined. "I'm not afraid of noise." "What about the league ban?" "Good," smirking, she said. "That means I'm doing something right." The hearing courtroom. The courtroom was packed. Media, reporters, athletes, protesters with signs like, "Competence has no color. Let fighters fight back. We are all Diana." Victoria sat across the room, hair pulled into a tight bun, her lawyers whispering frantically. Diana took the stand. The opposing attorney smiled like a shark. "Accusatory Ms. Santos, were you aware that filming someone without clear consent, especially in a vulnerable setting like a sparring match, could be considered malicious intent?" Diana held up the signed contract. "Page 3, paragraph 2, she said calmly. Victoria agreed to full documentation, including educational distribution. Her lawyers wrote it. The courtroom stirred. "And were you aware," insistent, he continued, "that releasing that footage would effectively end her career?" "I was aware," Diana said, voice cold, "that her career was built on silencing others. Mine was built on surviving that silence." The judge glanced over his glasses. "Authoritative objection overruled," he said. "Continue." Backlash as the court battle dragged on. The MMA League tried to strip Diana's name from the rankings. Brands that once flooded her inbox suddenly went quiet. A major gym chain canceled a training tour she'd planned. Anonymous threats arrived in her inbox. "You ruined a champion." "Cough, you're just playing the victim card." But one night after a long training session, she opened a message that made her pause. "My name is Layla. I'm 13. They make fun of my skin at school. But I watched your video, Ernest, and now I want to fight too." Diana stared at the screen for a long time, then replied, "Encouraging, train hard, never lower your voice. I'll be watching when you rise." Surprise! Evidence! Final court day. Marcus approached the bench with a USB stick. "Your Honor," serious, he said, "we have unreleased footage. It was from a private..." Victoria laughing with her trainer, bragging, haughty, "If that hood girl tries anything, I'll snap her in two. Cuckle, we'll make a meme out of it." The courtroom went silent. Even Victoria's lawyers stopped moving. The judge leaned forward, firmly. "I believe we've heard enough." Verdict. Victoria's lawsuit was dismissed. She was ordered to pay Diana's legal fees, issue a public apology, and undergo racial sensitivity training as part of a formal settlement with the league. The cameras caught every second of her apology. But it wasn't her words that mattered. It was the world watching her bend while Diana stood tall. The explosion. The documentary Breaking the Cage hit Netflix the next day. Within 48 hours, it topped the charts. CNN ran specials, NPR hosted debates, schools requested speaking tours, and a new grant program was launched in Diana's name, the Santos Fund for Marginalized Athletes. Back in Detroit Santos Fight Academy, the gym was packed, not just with fighters, but with stories. Young girls, single mothers, immigrants, dreamers, each one walked in heavy with doubt. Each one walked out lighter, because they saw themselves not in a fairy tale, but in a fighter who refused to stay silent. And Diana? She received an offer from a major international fight promotion. The headliner, Diana Santos versus an undefeated European champion. It would be the biggest women's MMA event in history. She smiled at the offer letter, but she hadn't signed it yet, because she was waiting. Long pause. For one last surprise. Build what they tried to bury. 6 months later, New York City. The venue was packed. Spotlights roamed the stage. Every major sports network, civil rights group, and women's advocacy organization was there. Diana stood behind the curtain, breathing slow and steady, not out of nerves, out of memory. Detroit, the cheap gloves, the racist comments, the nights she punched a bag until her knuckles bled, just to prove she belonged somewhere. And now, they had to belong to her. Voice over the PA. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Time Magazine's most influential woman in sports, founder of Santos Fight Academy, and the face of a movement that redefined women's MMA, Diana Santos. The crowd erupted. When Diana stepped onto the stage, the noise didn't feel like praise. It felt like thunder answering her rage. Her speech reflectively. When I was 14, she began, a coach told me, "You don't have the discipline to be great." She looked into the crowd, thousands of eyes, silent and alert, with conviction. He didn't mean discipline. He meant background. He meant skin. A hush fell over the room, thoughtful. But I stayed, I trained, I fought, and I lost. A lot. But every time I got knocked down, I learned something. It's not about proving yourself to others. Determined. It's about becoming so undeniable, they have to rewrite the rules just to keep you out. Cheers burst out, raw and emotional. She continued, reflective. They tried to break me. They mocked my speech, my look, my roots, and I let them. For a while, because I thought winning in their world meant playing by their rules, realizing. But then I realized real victory isn't entering their club. It's building your own. She held up a gold medal, the one from the first ever inclusive, fully sponsored, fighter-run championship she helped launch. Emotional. This belongs to every girl they said wasn't good enough. Outside the event, across the country, Victoria Sterling sat alone in a quiet cafe. Her face was thinner, softer. She wore no makeup, no entourage. She watched the speech on her cracked phone screen, headphones in, no bitterness anymore, just realization. The empire she tried to rule by fear had collapsed, but the one Diana built, it had walls of truth and a roof of fire. 1 year later, legacy cemented, the Santos Fight Academy now had 7 branches across the Midwest. A new documentary titled, After the Fall, Stories from the Cage, premiered on HBO. Not just about Diana, but about dozens of fighters who came forward in her wake. Marcus became co-founder of the Combat Equity Initiative, giving legal protection and media training to underrepresented fighters. Former sponsors who dropped Diana tried crawling back. She declined them all. Her gym was funded by the people, and her story, her voice, became required viewing and coaching certification programs nationwide. Final interview, a quiet room, softly. "Do you forgive Victoria?" the interviewer asked. Diana leaned back. "I don't carry hate," she said. "It's too heavy." Thoughtful. "I just carry the lesson." Curious. "And what's that?" She smiled. Wise. Never underestimate someone who's had to fight just to stand still. Because once they start moving, determined, there's no stopping them. Final scene, Detroit gym. A young girl, no more than 10, stood nervously on the mat. Diana knelt beside her, adjusting the girl's gloves. Gently, "You nervous?" The girl nodded. "Good," Diana whispered. Encouraging. "That means you care. Now show me what you've got." The bell rang. The girl stepped forward, tiny, uncertain, but determined. And behind her stood the woman who had turned pain into purpose, who had proven that justice doesn't always come from courts. Sometimes, it walks out of a cage with its head held high.